From the capital city of Charleston, West Virginia, this is Inside West Virginia Politics with Mark Curtis. Inside West Virginia Politics is brought to you by AARP West Virginia, your ally for real possibilities in the Mountain State.
And good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Inside West Virginia Politics. It is our annual Labor Day show where we talk to business and labor leaders about the state of the economy here in the beautiful mountain state of West Virginia. With that in mind, let me introduce our first guest. Steve Roberts is the president of the West Virginia Chamber of Commerce. Great to have you on the program. You've been on our newscast quite a bit of late because there's been some good economic news for the state of West Virginia. Talk about some of those numbers.
Well, Mark, thank you for having me on your show, and it's really just wonderful to have the opportunity to talk about some very good things that are happening in West Virginia. You know, we are #1 in the nation for wage growth, and we are #1 in the nation for GDP growth. That's the overall economy is really our GDP. And West Virginia doesn't very often get the opportunity to say we're #1 in the nation. What we think is that economic policies that are being developed in Washington and pushed through Congress are working, and they are working for West Virginia, and policies that have been led really by the West Virginia legislature are working in West Virginia. Business has a lot more confidence in West Virginia, and when businesses have confidence and see stability, they will invest and grow jobs and help the economy. So wages are going up. 27,000 jobs have been created in the last 3 years. Half of our job growth has just been in the last year, and it's broad-based. In fact, coal and retail are down a little bit, but everything else has been growing.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit because some of the other numbers came out from Workforce West Virginia, which is a state agency showing that we're at what the highest level of employment we've had in 10 years or a good stretch. And you mentioned some of the sectors that were down, but what's up?
So we're at the best level of employment in West Virginia that we've been since July of 2008. And we're seeing growth. This is very important. We're seeing big growth in the manufacturing sector. Only the construction sector has grown more than manufacturing. We would expect construction to be growing because there's a lot going on. There's a lot happening. But we've struggled in West Virginia to hold on to our manufacturing base. In fact, in 1980, we had 130,000 manufacturing jobs. Today, we have about 48,000 manufacturing jobs. So over time, we've seen big losses. But in the last year, instead of losing, we've been gaining. And we've gained over 1,000 manufacturing jobs. We could go a whole lot higher, and that will help the economy of West Virginia.
One of the things we always look forward to, and I'll ask the labor leaders about this, is what can we do at the legislative level to get us beyond where we are? And the first thing that comes to mind is, do we have enough job training, or do we need more? And are we doing enough to treat people who have had opioid addictions, get them clean and back into the workforce? How do we do that? What does the legislature need to do?
Everything you're bringing up is important. Here's what we think needs to happen. Let me start by saying that we have 20,000 job openings in West Virginia today. What we don't have are workers who have the skills, whether it's basic math skills or work skills. Show up clean, show up on time, be ready to work. We have some gaps in that area. Broadly, that's known as the skills gap. And we can do a lot to help fill the skills gap. Secondly, efforts are underway to help with the opioid addiction crisis. The opioid addiction crisis is abating, at least in West Virginia and in central Appalachia. I like to say that instead of being the center of the epidemic, we're the center of the answer to the epidemic. We're beginning to see that. Programs that they have underway at Marshall University, West Virginia University, are really, really making a difference in this area. We also need to put more money into the West Virginia Development Office. They need to have the money for a site readiness program. They need to have the money for a shell building program. And we have such good news in West Virginia, we need to tell everybody. And frankly, it takes money. We have to advertise ourselves more. We host at the West Virginia Chamber, we host international visitors, we host national visitors. People love West Virginia. We just have to tell them about it.
Yeah, and I should point out that as you drive down Kanawha Boulevard near the capital of West Virginia, your offices are located there. You have a big big banner out front saying now #1 in GDP growth, #1 in wage growth, and so you guys are trying to shout it to the mountaintops here in the Mountain State.
We really want people to know that West Virginia's economy has turned around, it's growing, and the future is ours.
All right, we're going to talk to some labor leaders coming up next. We do want to thank Steve Roberts, president of the West Virginia Chamber of Commerce, for being here and sharing the good news. We'll talk more about business and labor here on Inside West Virginia Politics. Don't go away.
Now back to Inside West Virginia Politics with Mark Curtis.
Welcome back to Inside West Virginia Politics. I'm Adrienne Robbins, and on this Labor Day weekend, we are continuing our discussion with some of these union leaders. Now we're moving on to the overall environment that West Virginia workers are going through right now. So we're bringing in Josh Sword, president of AFL-CIO. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't you first off just go ahead and tell us a little bit about the AFL-CIO here in West Virginia?
Sure. The West Virginia AFL-CIO is essentially the umbrella organization for almost all the unions in West Virginia. We represent folks from every sector of our economy: the industrial sector, the building and construction trades, the service sector, the private sector, the public sector. So we have, 55 different unions that are affiliated with the AFL-CIO, representing roughly 70,000 active and 70,000 retired West Virginia citizens.
And obviously, one of the biggest conversations we're having right now in West Virginia is the economy and jobs. Can you kind of give us an idea of what some of these West Virginia workers are facing out there?
Well, I hear from a number of people who are trying to paint a rosier picture than what really exists on a pretty daily basis. And the reality is, there are some real concerns out there as it relates to typical worker and worker compensation. For example, over the last 40 years, CEO pay has increased about 950%, while the typical worker wages have increased about 12%, both taking inflation into account. So there's a clear disparity that has been going on for 40 years, and there's no sign of that slowing down. And it's really troubling to us because we know that a healthy middle class creates a better all environment for all. And, we keep fighting for that middle class. I think we're, on solid ground here, but these attacks from the West Virginia legislature led by Mitch Carmichael has been making it more and more difficult to do what we can to help middle class families prosper. And that's what we really need to have a healthy economy.
Obviously, one of the things you're referencing there is the right to work, and you continue to go through that litigation process. Tell us about the most recent update to the right to work bill.
Sure. That's a bill that was passed, I believe, first in 2016. We've been in court essentially ever since. Right now, we actually have a very favorable decision from a circuit judge here in Kanawha County. Patrick Morrissey, the Attorney General, who's representing the other side, has appealed that to the state Supreme Court. We're now filing briefs and responding to things. We believe that we'll likely have our day in court sometime this fall, and maybe get some determination as to where the constitutionality falls on right to work. Our opinion has always been and will continue to be, if you allow right to work to become law, you're illegally taking property from unions and union members, and it's just not right. And we believe our Constitution protects that.
Obviously, right to work was a very controversial bill when it first came forward. A lot of people say, hey, it just gives people the option. What's wrong with giving people the option? What's your response to that?
Well, it's just not an argument that makes sense. These folks get real representation from the local unions. I mean, they get grievance representation, the collective bargaining process. There's real value to that. There's nothing wrong with asking for these individual workers to pay a little bit to pay for that representation. And the reality is, as we've seen in all these other states that have gone right to work, when right to work becomes law, wages go down, benefits get taken away, and workplaces are left safe. So we're, aside from the short-term consequences, the long-term consequences are dire. Lower wages, fewer benefits, and more dangerous workplace is not a good combination.
Is there anything that you're looking for in the upcoming legislative session that you think will be affecting unions? You talk about there have been many attacks that you feel coming from the legislature.
Well, we've seen these attacks for 5 years. And so our expectation is that they will continue. I mean, we've seen this legislative leadership team go after prevailing wage, which has had a real impact on West Virginia workers. I mean, on these public construction jobs right now, Out-of-state companies are bringing out-of-state workers in to do these jobs while we have highly qualified West Virginia citizens, West Virginia workers begging for these jobs. And by the way, it's not saving the state one red cent. It's just been a farce. I mean, it is an absolute joke. But that's the kind of stuff they've done. And then, of course, all the attacks on our educators. Now we're going to have charter schools where we're going to give more money away to out-of-state corporations. I expect to see more of the same from Mitch Carmichael and his leadership team, and we're going to keep fighting back, and then we're really going to get focused in the 2020 election and do what we can to elect more worker-friendly candidates to the legislature.
And finally, we have less than a minute left, but you know, so many people talk about people are leaving West Virginia for other jobs out there. Do you think it's a myth that we don't have the jobs here in West Virginia that people could get here?
Well, I don't know that it's a myth, but I'll tell you this: when you have people like Mitch Carmichael, who have declared war on people trying to provide for their family, regardless of what they're trying to do, why would you want to live here? I mean, he's the president of the Senate, the #2 person in our government, and he's continually critical of everything about West Virginia. Who would want to live here? I mean, I understand why people want to leave, but the reality is this is a great place. We have great workers. In fact, we hear all over the country that we have the best workers in the country. We have a problem now with the legislative leadership realizing that and giving West Virginia workers an opportunity to do the job that they've been trained for.
All right, thank you so much, Josh Sword. Thank you so much for being here.
Appreciate it, Adrian.
And we're going to continue this conversation on this Labor Day weekend here on Inside West Virginia Politics, coming up next.
Now back to Inside West Virginia Politics with Mark Curtis.
Welcome back to Inside West Virginia Politics. I'm Adrian Robbins. We're continuing our Labor Day celebration, and now we're going to be talking to the guys who handle the big equipment. Chuck Parker from International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 132. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here.
Start off by telling me about the guys and females as well that you represent.
We represent the operating engineers, the people that run the heavy equipment, the cranes, dozers, backhoes, excavators. They work on the road projects, on pipeline projects, building construction, things of that nature.
Obviously, a big thing that you guys do is roads, and this is your busy season. Tell me about some of those big projects that you guys have been working on all summer.
We have the I-64 widening in Tays Valley there. We worked on the projects here in Charleston where the bridges that was supposed to be done in 100 days, and they actually got it done in 91 days. So, and they're nice bridges there. So, we're working on the Wellsburg Bridge going across the Ohio River, the new bridge up there. Also, some work there on the Turnpike in Beckley, and then the new I-70 project in Wheeling.
You know, obviously here in West Virginia, a lot of what we talk about is jobs, but an important aspect of that is the job training. And obviously, to be a part of your union and have this, they need that job training. Can you tell me about what's out there, opportunities for people?
We have our training site. It's located in Medina, West Virginia, or Ravenswood, West Virginia, off the Medina exit there. We have every piece of major equipment out there that you'll find on the job. If not, then some contractors that we have will donate some equipment for the training for those jobs. We have a fully staffed instructors, and we operate year-round up there.
Obviously, a big piece of what you do, too, is the apprenticeship program. Tell me how important are those, making sure that you have that apprenticeship when you're younger and trying to get into some of these trades?
The apprenticeship is pretty valuable. It starts from the entry level clear to being proficient on at least 3 or 4 pieces of machinery when you leave there. So when you do leave, you can go out and make a living and build your retirement.
And our very own Mark Curtis, for one of his on-the-job segments, actually came out and visited you. Just between me and you, how'd he do out there?
This is TV, so he done great.
We're going to the left here. We've got the pipe. We've got the pipe. We're going left. All right, we're going up. All right, he's signaling me to keep going left and then stop. Oop. See, I'm getting confused. I'm just raising it straight up. I'm not bringing the boom back towards me.
What would you like people out there to know about some of these jobs and some of the projects that you guys are working on?
The jobs that we go out on, a lot of them are, we stress safety, the productivity. We usually go out and do a job, and a lot of them are done under time, under budget, and with no accidents.
And then just real quickly, I wanted to touch on the pipeline work you guys are also doing, because it's not all about roads, even though that's what we mostly hear about.
Yeah, we work on the pipeline projects right now. There's probably 25 projects in the state of West Virginia we're working on. Plus we do windmill projects also. So most of the windmill projects that was built in the state of West Virginia was done with organized labor.
All right, Chuck Parker, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And we're going to have much more Inside West Virginia Politics celebrating Labor Day coming up next.
Now back to Inside West Virginia Politics with Mark Curtis.
And welcome back to our final segment this Sunday on Inside West Virginia Politics as we talk about the business and labor communities here in the mountain state of West Virginia. We hope you're all having a great Labor Day weekend. With me right now is Elaine Harris. She's a staff representative with the Communications Workers of America. Is it Chapter 115 or no, 213, Local 213,
District
right?
213.
District, I'm trying to remember all the numbers. Great to have you on the program again. One of the things we want to talk about this week is the issue of pay equity. There was a recent study from WalletHub.com that said West Virginia was 6th in the nation in terms of equity in pay and benefits between men and women. That kind of surprised me. I think it surprised you as well. On the other hand, American Association of University Women came out with a study that kind of contradicted that. Where are we in terms of pay equity?
Well, nationally, here in the United States, it's 80 cents. Women earn 80 cents to every dollar to our male counterparts. And in West Virginia, it's 74 cents. So we're below, and we've got work to do. Yeah.
So even though if it's true that we are 6th in the nation in terms of being 6th best, there's still a long way to go, right?
Yeah. I looked at both of those pieces, and AAUW, I think they nail it, in terms of information. Like you said, the WalletHub is a little confusing, but I think at the end of the day, it talks about pay and the equity. So,
are you folks backing legislation before Congress that would close the pay gap?
Absolutely. The Paycheck Fairness Act, which was known at one point the Lilly Ledbetter Act, that would bring things into perspective. Also, there's 2 other bills that now people in many instances are forbidden to talk about what they're paid when there's not a collective bargaining agreement, which is in a contract, with the unions, that what your male counterparts are making because you make the same. You're under that contract for each respective job title. This would allow you to be able to talk about it, and so again, the Paycheck Fairness Act we fully support.
Now, you're in a union, and that's a bit different than the private sector. I mean, when you you represent corrections officers in the state of West Virginia or call center workers for Frontier and so forth. But if a man and women start at the same starting pay, they have equal pay, and if they're there 10 years, they should ostensibly be being paid the same, right?
Yeah, through collective bargaining agreements in both the private and public sector, there are pay scales, and whether male or female, those scales are equal because we negotiate the pay and the benefits.
I want to talk about another subject here because this is near and dear to many of our viewers' hearts. We're talking about, you call for customer service at whether it's your Frontier cable subscriber or any other of the folks you represent. You guys are working on some legislation that will deal with call centers because a lot more of these days get offshored to other countries. A lot of times there's a real language difficulty between me, the consumer, calling customer service trying to get help. What are you folks working on legislatively?
We have 2 national pieces of legislation. One that I'm proud to say there's bipartisan support. Congressman McKinley from West Virginia joining up with a Congressman Mark Pocan to reach across party lines to sponsor this legislation. And what that would do, if it were passed, it would allow you to know when you reach someone in another country to know where they're located. You also would have the right to transfer that call back to someone here in the United States. And also, it would create a bad actor list. If there are companies that are offshoring, taking the work out of our country, then they would be on that list and they would not be eligible for any types of grants or assistance that they would receive currently. And then they would have a chance to redeem themselves by bringing jobs back. So it's twofold. The legislation, it's good for jobs and it's good for consumers. Now the second piece of legislation, the tax reform that was passed sometime earlier, it gave tax breaks to companies, corporations. And what has happened, it was given testimony in Washington before Congress that they would reinvest in the workers with those tax breaks. But what we're seeing happen is more offshoring, centers closing, and we just, that's not good. We represent AT&T workers, and we also represent Frontier with call centers.
All right, we're going to follow this issue because Congress goes back to Washington September 9th. Yes. We want to thank Elaine Harris from the Communications Workers of America, District 213 chapter here in West Virginia. Good to see you again, and we'll have you back as this legislation progresses, all right?
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching Inside West Virginia Politics. Don't forget, download us from your favorite podcast vendor. We'll see you back here next week.